on this computer. Excellent. So, hello everyone. Let me just get myself set up. Hello, welcome to Kent Digital Meetup Ashford, broadcasting live from Ashford and obviously from everywhere else that everyone is, because we are online, because that's how we do things in the lockdown world. We're not allowed to see people in real life. My name is Aaron Taylor. I am CEO of 62. We're a web design and development business, and we sponsor the Ashford KDM because we think that actually Kent is a bloody good place for digital, and digital people are cool, and people that are interested in digital or people that work in it need a place to just come together, learn some stuff, share some ideas, and in the physical world, back in the good old days, drink beer and eat pizza. So that's really what it's about. Every month we get a couple of digital experts, and they share their knowledge and insights with us, and we learn a whole bunch, and it's awesome. And we have Q&As, and we ask some really awkward questions, and it gets philosophical, and then I say something stupid and everyone laughs, and yada yada yada. This is how it goes. So this week we've got two incredible speakers. I'm really very much looking forward to this. Now, this is my first test. Ray is going first, right? Yes. Okay. So first up, we've got Raymond Coulstock, who's the MD at Eruditology. Ray is like one of the, I guess, the original KDM community. You've been to pretty much everything we've thrown at you. You've been there. Ray trains techie people, which must be one of the hardest jobs in the world. Am I right?
It gets awkward sometimes.
And his talk is about how to get the best out of the digital team with the right skilling and see already the speaking fails, with the right training. So he'll be on first, and he'll be talking in just a minute, and then we're going to have a little break, and we're going to have an opportunity to just kind of continue talking to each other, or pause your video and go off and do something briefly, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to be having a talk from Richard Pilton, Managing Director at Kayo Digital, Kent's #1 technical agency.
That's right. Only technical agency, actually.
Only technical. So I'm really, really looking forward to this, because they do some amazing work up over at Kayo, and what they're going to be doing. And actually, you guys are very good at producing pieces of research. And this is one of the things that I think we should be doing a lot more in the digital realm. It's not just left for London agencies. I think we should all be doing and compiling a bit more research into kind of trends and those sorts of things. His talk is reviewing Kent's fastest growing companies online. I don't know if you guys are aware of things like the KM Mega Growth 50. Kent has a lot of very big, very fast growing companies, just way more than you would expect. So Richard's going to be talking about them and showing us what we can learn from them and how we can maybe implement it in our own business. Cool. That's it from me. I'm going to hand over to Ray now. For those of you who have not been here before, back in the good old days when people were allowed to be within 2 meters of each other, we used to have a lot of wine and beer and pizza and vegan stuff. And if that's your jam, join us, because it's a Wednesday evening. We've broken the back of it. We've done it, guys. Yeah. Whatever your vices. Right. So, one thing that I didn't do. See, I always forget something. And the thing that I forgot this time was to actually share. There's me talking through the agenda, but we have slides. And if I just present this, can everyone see that? So this was the first slide. Let's talk about getting the best out of digital. Like Megan puts these slides together and I forgot to show it. So I'm really sorry, Megan.
Such an insult.
So this is the agenda. We can see it's we're already late. There's the break, Richard's talk and Q&A, goodbyes, networking, more networking afterwards as well. Who'd have thought this is not the first time I've done this? No one would have. Right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to hand over. I'm going to hand over to you, Ray.
Cool. Okay, I will attempt to get my screen share correct. Share. There. Can you all see my screen? I hope. You can. Cool. I see Aaron's thumbs up. Okay, so thanks for the introduction, Aaron. It's really nice. Here you introduce everybody over the last couple of years. It's nice to hear you say it about me for a change. So, yes, this talk's going to be digital training. It's what I spend most of my life doing. So how to get the best out of a digital team by picking the right training and doing the right training. Let me get my cursor in the right place. There we go. Make sure I can draw on the page as well would be helpful. There we go. So, yeah, the company name that I've been running for the last couple of years now is called Eruditology. It's all about training, so the science of training, science of learning together. I've been teaching for around 20 years now, or just over 20 years in a number of different countries, a number of different companies. A lot of big tech companies and doing training to agencies and medium tech companies. I've been lucky to do it in many countries around the world now. As I say, in the last couple of years, I've started building a team to help me focus on doing that. Rather than being full-time employed at one of these companies, I'm now independent and deliver training for these companies. Rather than the typical linear bullet point agenda, I've gone with a picture like this. So I'm going to start off with big picture because I'm a big picture sort of person. And with any big picture, we need to start looking at, when we're doing training for a business, we're looking at what the business needs to do, the business targets. And then we break that down gradually into the skills needed to hit those targets. And then we work out the training needed to hit those, to do those skills. And then how to find good training in the tech world. And there's a lot out there. And it really needs to be tailored for each individual person. I guess it's not new knowledge. What I'm talking about is what teachers have been doing, college lecturers and teachers have been doing for many, many years. When new students come in, you spend some time with each student, you then work with the student over the next couple of years to help train them. But it's not normally done in big business. I get drafted in as a trainer very often to go and do a 3 or 4 day course somewhere in the world, or Zoom now. And that's it. After the 3 or 4 day course, they never see me again. Whereas when you're embedded in a business, you can get to know the staff, you get to know the people, you get to know your colleagues, and you can help better with the training. So diving into the big business side of it, the big picture side of it, you start off with your idea or plan for the business, how you're going to make money. I'll draw over here. And somehow you need to be able to sell that to potentially interested customers. And you're going to be making use of your employees to do that. So as long as your employees have the right skills, you can make products, you can build services, whatever you need to do. You're not going to do everything yourself. Depending on the size of the business, you may well use accountants as an extra service, or lawyers, or you may well have agencies for doing your web design or digital media, like many of us work with at the moment, or are the agencies. So you don't need to train your staff in everything for the business. It's just the key elements of what you do as a business. So I do lots of diagrams with my training. And this is similar to my training. So the starting point should always be the business plan. Now, as an individual trainer, you don't always get to see this. As a business owner, now I know this for my own business. And the CEO or the managing director of business should have the business plan very clear, and they should filter that down to the next level of management or down to the staff so everybody's clear as to what's going on. Now, if you're doing the training for a small team, your job is to take the big picture plan and just make it relevant to your team, just the elements that you need. And so what we've got in the middle here is my Eruditology team at the moment. It's me and two others, which makes a nice change because I'm used to dealing with, last time I did a big plan was for 300 tech people spread around the world. Now I get to do it for just 3 of us. So this makes a nice change. But I can bring the same principles down to the small team that I've done with much larger teams. Now I'm going to build up a little spreadsheet of the skills needed to achieve what I want to achieve for my clients. Now I'm going to cancel out of that spreadsheet things for accountants. I'm not going to employ an accountant. I'm going to use that as an external service. And cloud services like Office 360 and hosting on Azure, I'm not going to employ a technician to set up a server. I'm just going to rent those services from somewhere else. Networking events, I don't run any. I'm just going to attend them like this one. And cool software, I'm not building the cool software, but I'm learning it and I'm teaching it. And so I can cancel out or decide which skills I am going to use to achieve what I need to achieve for the clients. So the idea is business skill planning first, and also filter in future projects, especially in digital. Once you have a list of software or services that you are using within your business, for example, if we all rely on WordPress or Photoshop, when is the next big release coming out? When's the new version of WordPress coming out? Are we actually going to just hope our staff pick it up when it comes out? Is it a big change? Lots of new elements being added into it? Do we have to do a big plan? Think of some of the changes between Windows 7 and Windows 10. If you need to do a big upgrade, can you just assume your staff know how to learn it, or just train them somehow? So I've got the overall plan for the business. I know which skills are needed. I know what's coming out in the future. I can make a prediction there. I now need to look into each job role, what skills are needed. And so it's not necessarily, this element down here, the little spreadsheet is for the job role, not necessarily the person. So the idea that the managing director needs to know this, the graphic designer needs to know something, the web developer needs to know a different list. This also then can be useful for if any one of my members of staff leaves, I've got a list ready for the job description that I can give out to a recruiter. And keeping this up to date. I've seen it many, many times where big companies will suddenly turn around and go, oh, we don't have this list. So you get an email around to everyone in the company saying, can you please update your own job descriptions? We're not firing you. We just need a record, because no one's kept it up. It happens every 3 or 4 years in a large company. Keeping this up to date, and you should be kept up to date for any new software that comes out. I tend to use a little mapping chart like this. So I've got my job description for a Java developer on the left-hand side, and we're going from a score of 0 to a score of 5 on the outer side. So for each element, so for example, for a JavaScript developer, I'm saying that you need to be a level 4 in HTML. You should have HTML knowledge, and you should be good at JavaScript. But REST services, we'll put that as a 2. You need to call it from JavaScript, but you don't need to actually program the original web service. That would be done by a back-end developer. Anyway, the idea is there's a map there of skills needed for a JavaScript developer. And for an individual person, we've got a list of skills that someone actually has. And you can do a sort of overlay of the two and see what's missing. And it's a very easy way visually, and I like things visually, to see whether people match a role or not. And you could have, obviously, the more the circle that's filled out, the more of those skills that you have. So this is a way of mapping and charting a job's skills needed versus someone who's actually potentially going to go into the job or already has the job. Now you can do this via an actual chat, or I wouldn't necessarily call it an interview, although it is kind of an interview. But if you start doing interviews with your staff, you're going to spook them that they might potentially lose their jobs, and that's not what this is about. This is about identifying what skills they have. I did it with my team recently, but again, I've done this with people that have been in jobs 5-10 years, and over those 5 or 10 years, they've learnt more skills, but nobody in HR has recorded it. And so it might be that there is a new version of WordPress coming out, but you weren't aware that somebody has been contributing to building the new version of WordPress and adding bits as a community. So when as a company you decide we need to upskill, you don't know that somebody over in that department is an expert in it. I had this situation recently. I'd moved from one company from Sitecore to another company. And this other company, I was at a Christmas do and they're saying, oh, we just had a pitch that we were trying to do, and they wanted to use our software with Sitecore software, but we didn't know anything about it. So we lost that pitch. And I pointed out, I used to be the trainer there for 3 or 4 years. I could have told you everything about the software, but nobody in management knew it. When they investigated it more, they found that out of the 300 people they had employed there, 5 people used to work at Sitecore. But they didn't know, and they could have won a pitch, and it was millions and millions of dollars worth of a pitch. But the skills they had were not relevant to the job they were doing, so nobody recorded it. So it's well worth, even if someone's got beekeeping or great at working with tents or something, record it down, list it down as a skill. You never know when it's going to be useful in the future, hobbies or anything. Leading into it, the end of that chat that you have with each person as well is identify how they like to learn. Now, I did a lot more on this at a Code Harbor talk in March this year, advising each individual person rather than business big picture first. But the idea here is that, again, it's common knowledge in education and schools and colleges that each person is different. Everybody likes to learn differently. Some people love books, and I've spoken about this with Glenn as well. I'm not one for reading lots of books. I like videos and I like audio. Everybody's different. And if you can identify how your employees like to learn, you can help them with it. You could decide to give all, and we did this in another company, we bought everybody in the company a Pluralsight subscription. But not everybody likes videos. Some people would have preferred books or audio books. Now, a skilled teacher will do this like that. Just they will know their own students, and they'll know which students spend time staring out the windows, which ones spend time listening to them, which ones sit there and take lots of notes, and those who don't take any notes. They will know that automatically. When it's your staff and your team you work with, you can learn that over time. As a trainer in just a half hour, it's very hard to work that out. There are some tricks you can use, part of neuro-linguistic programming. So there are some questions here about maybe how you've related to this talk. If you found yourself staring away from the screen and only listening, then maybe you're not a visual person. Maybe you're just listening. And how you say things when you phrase things and questions. If you keep asking things like, do you see what I mean? If you use the word see a lot, it can often imply you're a visual learner. Do you hear what I'm saying? It can imply you're an auditory learner. It's what hypnotists use a lot of the time to try and to get into people's heads. But on a simple level, you can use it as a clue for how people like to learn. Another way is when people are interacting with you at work. If they send you long, lengthy emails, then they're probably a written person. If they prefer to come over to the water cooler and have a chat with you, they're a verbal person. And if all you ever do is email people, but they don't respond to it, then you're not getting through to them. The training needs to work the same way. So we can end up with a bit of a grid for each person. And we can look at the fact that maybe you like video. So I think this is my grid. So I like videos. I'm happy watching long videos, good 7 or 8 hours long on LinkedIn Learning or Pluralsight. And I'm happy with short ones on YouTube. and I'm happy to pay for them. So I have subscription. Not necessarily weekly, because I might be busy one week rather than the other. So I get them as and when I need them. I like listening to lecturers teach. I like audio. I don't have books anywhere in mine. I do have a few, but I only use them as reference. I do like to code, and I like group activities. Now, as a trainer, as someone that knows the training industry, I can use that for somebody, and I can go and find the right training for that individual based on that map. If you don't have anything here, then I wouldn't recommend YouTube and Pluralsight and LinkedIn Learning. You wouldn't get the benefit from it. There's a huge group of potential places to find training out there. Can anyone see the joke one, the odd one out? I can see Karina smiling and pointing.
I've always been interested in joining Starfleet, but it does stand out a little bit.
The first time I did this talk at Code Harbor, I used Star Trek as my theme, and picking your career, whether you wanted to be a captain, whether you wanted to be an engineer, whether you wanted to be medical, and use the colors from Star Trek throughout as to theme my whole thing. But yeah, some of these are videos. Some of these are audio books. Some of them are blogs. Some of them are paid for. Some of them are free. There's a massive, massive list out there, and there are new ones all the time. And this would be doing me out of a job as a face-to-face trainer. But then some people love face-to-face. Some people love watching things in their own time as and when they need it. It's pick the right training for what you need based on what you need as a business, what the individual needs for their job role, and how they like to learn. You should be able to tailor this specifically for each person. And also, as being a good employer and a good friend, you should be looking at the career of the individual when you work with them as well, taking them from not necessarily a baby student, but maybe a junior developer, and which route do they go through their career? Do you have a technical director that works for you? And if at some point in the future that technical director might leave or retire or move on to another job, are you going to promote from within? In which case, get your senior developers and full stack developers training now towards it, rather than when the technical director leaves, suddenly you've got to get someone trained up. It'd be better to have 2 skilled technical directors. And of course, the list of skills differs depending on the job. So junior developers, the basic skills they're looking at, SQL, some C#. This is if you're a C# junior developer. There's many different languages out there. And depending on if you're aiming for a full stack developer, learn the skills for a full stack developer early before you get into the job. That way you're ready to step into it and you have the skills, rather than at the point where you're furloughed and you've got to look for another job, or your employer says, I can promote you into it now. Don't start learning then. Start learning in advance, ready for it. But from a business point of view, we need to do all of that for each individual person. Any successful business is just like a sports team or a music band. You need the whole team or the whole band trained, not just one superstar. If you want help with that, I can give you some documents. I could come and advise, or just take the hints that I've given you today. Do a CV review of each person, but remember to tie it into where you want the business to go. The training plan, you can have an individual training plan, you can have a team training plan. Now, if you're only talking a small team, a handful of people, it's quite easy to do. If you're talking hundreds, then you can start looking at, we're going to get groups of subscriptions and discounts to some of these. They will do group discounts, bulk buy. So if you've got, I know I've managed to get discounts from Pluralsight in the past because we've had 300 plus accounts. But that's only helpful if you have large teams. Also, and I've used certainly before, is when you do have large teams, you invariably have experts on one side of the company. You could get them to come over and do a bit of a training session for others on the other side. one team is building one product, when it needs to get shared out to the rest of the company, you get the volunteer from that team to go and show the rest of the company. That happens quite a lot with talks like we're doing now. That pretty much brings me to the end, actually. Ready for any? I mean, I could talk for hours on this, and I've cut this down. But if you want to find me on LinkedIn, you should be able to scan that with your LinkedIn app, the QR code. That's a quick way to do it, although some of you may already have me on LinkedIn. Ready for any questions?
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm gonna give a small applause because I don't know how loud people have got their volume turned up. So now we jump into the Q&A. I mean, first off, it's not really a question, it's just more of a remark. The whole kind of idea of just recording the skills that are within the business through conversations with people, it's remarkably simple, but I can see how it can be so powerful. I can imagine organizations where, I don't know, Sally leaves and suddenly no one knows how to, do you know what I mean? No one knows how to reconcile X, Y, Z, A, B, or C, or, no one knows how to, I don't know, fix whatever kind of server when it goes down, because Sally always did that. And it reminds me of our recruitment process. So we obviously test for the skills that you need to do the job. Can you actually do the things? Can you write the code? Can you design it? Organize things. But we're also very interested in people's hobbies and what they do kind of outside of that, because that gives us, we find it a very reliable indicator of what that person is like. Someone who just like, codes during the day, codes during the night, you're typically going to find that to be a certain type of person, and they might fit with the team differently. Whereas someone who codes during the day and, I don't know, paints in groups during the night or as part of a band or something like that, you can infer so much more about them. So that's really interesting. I guess one of my questions is, why do not more organizations, and I should really say, what in your experience have you found to be the number one reason why more organizations just don't record what skills they have in the business?
Because it's not the focus of their business. Tech companies do tech. I mean, I've worked with a lot of tech companies, and they're focused on release schedules, building software, releasing it, testing it, making sure it's ready to go out. And if you're, I guess, it gets to a certain point in management structures of large businesses where you rely on the team managers to manage their own team day to day. And it doesn't always get filtered back up through the management structure how teams have been trained. You've got 5 people on your team. Are you ready to go with this project? Yes, I am. Good. It's not, oh, I'm going to now filter to that manager that things are going to change in 6 months. We got new software. We got new things. How are you going to learn that? And once people have been burnt by a few mistakes and people not knowing things, and then complaints being filtered back up, going through the HR process, does somebody decide to actually do something about it? And then they try and find somebody that can run the training system. And often somebody that can run the training system, I've seen a lot of people who decide, I've done a few talks at a Kent Digital Meetup or something, so I can be a trainer. And then they apply for the role and they become the training coordinator. I've seen that a lot. I guess it would be like the difference between being a web developer at a bank or a small bank where you're in a team of 4, 1 or 5 web developers, as opposed to being a web developer in a web agency where there's 50 of you. You get surrounded by web developers and there would be common knowledge. Yeah. When you're a lecturer at a college, you're surrounded by 300 or 400 people who do tutorials, skills, training all day, every day. And suddenly you go to a company and you're the one person that does training.
Yeah.
You spend your time trying to convince everybody tutorials are a good idea and spending and mentoring and stuff. And they go, what's a mentoring plan?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen it a lot where it's not new knowledge, but big businesses don't think of employing experts necessarily in education. It's people that have a passion for it and want to have a go.
It almost sounds well, I can definitely see, like, along the entrepreneur journey, why one would focus on primarily delivery, because delivery equals sales. But like so much more is needed. You know that you should be doing a course in entrepreneurship and that kind of what makes a business. Of it, every business has these basic functions, and these need to be looked after and managed. Yes, it's boring. It's not what you want to do, Mr. Inventor. But you need to get people in that can, make sure that who's delivering your business. Well, ultimately, people. Yeah. How will those people kind of learn to deliver their business? How will they improve? What happens if they leave? Those sorts of things.
Yeah. I think a lot of people's view on it's one of those things that when you don't do a job or you don't do a task, you think, oh, it's just that. Web development, oh, it's just typing some words on screen, picking some colors, put a few images in, you're done. And when you start doing the job, you think, oh, wow, there's so much more to this. And the same with accountancy. Excel spreadsheet, that's good enough, isn't it, for accounting? And for teaching, I'm teaching now. That's it. Like 20-minute talk, I'm done. That's good enough. I've taught you something. But the whole big picture of working out someone's learning style, guiding them through it, mentoring them, giving them, because like if lots of things, if you don't get to use a skill immediately after you've learnt it, you'll forget it. But so many people say, here's a book or a video, watch that. But then it's 6 months before they're assigned to the project where they can use it, and then they've got to learn it again.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else got any questions? To the floor.
Ray, I'm wondering to what extent, because obviously as a coach, I go into organizations and sort of help with their I don't help with their talent mapping, but talent mapping comes into it, and therefore an element of that is obviously skills mapping, particularly if it's an IT company.
Yep.
So I'm wondering to what extent you've noticed how the culture of the organization makes a difference to their approach to this kind of stuff. So for example, I mean, I've always found that if I go into somewhere that is very forward looking, which actually tech companies tend to be more so than, well, the other end of the scale is probably any public sector organization where they're so stuck in the day to day, they're not forward looking, they're not innovating, they've got no real interest, let alone focus on that side of things. So the very idea of mapping people's skills or looking at where they're headed is just it's so out of the park for them that do you know what I mean? It just doesn't fit. So I was wondering if, in your experience, you found that there is a noticeable difference in how that culture of the company actually impacts what you do.
Culture has a big effect, but it's the culture of the company and the culture of the company of that department or division as well. I've seen it where the same company has been different depending on which country you've been in or who the team manager is. If a team manager is so swamped and so busy and not focused on it, training is very easy to let slide. They've got their deadlines, they've got their KPIs to hit, and the training is, you know what, we'll just muddle through. And there are some cultures around the world where I've gone and I've done training or interview training, and they believe in a job for life, but they also believe that the schools and colleges don't provide the right training. So when people come into the job, they will, one, give them English language training, they will do tech training, and they will build a plan, and they will have a local training coordinator, and they will plan the whole thing. And then other countries, England being one of them, and I think in America, where people just came in and, well, you teach yourself, use the online videos and stuff. And you get people in who speak English, they've worked in IT jobs before, that's good enough, they know what they're doing.
Does that kind of make the mapping process quite subjective in a way? Are there ever problems in terms of people either overrating or underrating their skill set?
Absolutely. It's useful having, and one of the systems that they use in colleges and universities, they have the same problem. So for many years, what the awarding bodies do in colleges, universities, is they produce a list of bullet points or things that are going to be taught in this course, like for the BTECs and the GMVQ and the City and Guilds. This is the criteria that's going to be taught. But we don't write the exam and we don't write the assignments. That's up to each individual lecturer around the country. What you do is you have moderators who will go to City and Guilds or BTEC, and they will spend a day sitting together discussing and agreeing standards, and then each moderator will go out to different colleges and would say, give me a sample of the work and I will check it hits the same levels. So you're still leaving it up to individual people or team managers to check, but you have a group session where all the team managers sit down and agree standards. So your idea of a level 4 is the same as my idea of a level 4. And then your charts can kind of be balanced out. But that discussion needs to happen.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very kind of, and obviously not trying to sidetrack it, but that's what I think local government should be run like. we have these national standards. We all sit down and agree, based on the requirements of our local areas, kind of what the implementations should be. But is that conversation happening? Sorry, Karina.
So I was just saying national government would be nice as well.
We have a set of agreed standards. But is that conversation happening, Ray?
What, in government?
No, in training. So like the example you gave with lecturers and course leaders being able to effectively write the exam and have that sense checked.
It depends on the tech company. Some tech companies have bigger training departments rather than others. I know the likes of Microsoft and Amazon, they certainly do. Yeah. And they use what they call SMEs, subject matter experts, to help write the training material. Yeah. And then people in Microsoft an external can sense check it before it's turned into a proper Microsoft exam. And then they use freelance trainers to deliver it as well. Yeah. And I find that it's a bit of a scale. The smaller tech companies, when they first start looking at it, they'll employ one education person who does the training, writes the training plans. And I've been that person where you train the internal new staff members that turn up, you train partners who are going to be the experts building it, and you train customers who just paid a large sum how to use it. Yeah. And then as the company grows and you get more and more and that trainer's too busy, they take on more trainers, then you've got a training leader. By the time you get 3 levels in a training department, you often find somebody who has worked at university or colleges, somebody senior in there, and they start pulling in more educational processes. But up till then, it's almost Wild West, and it's depending on the experience of the individual trainers. Yeah, yeah. Excellent. If no one else has got any other questions, anyone else? I'll stop my share. Excellent, and I will reshare mine. Thank you very much. That was that was really, really, really insightful, and it's always interesting to see that kind of, I guess, especially on the level that most of us are at. Definitely very much SME. For what training we are able to provide in whatever ways, whatever kind of processes we put behind it. I can see how that will give us that edge over competition, because if you can get to a 300 strong team and still not really be training or even know who has what skills, it's encouraging. It's encouraging. Right. It is 22 minutes past. Richard's talk's meant to start at past, but should we take a break and come back at 7:35? If that suits everyone? Yeah, take a quick break. You can stay on and talk to each other, or you can pause and run away, or you can put a video up in the background. It's up to you.
Right, I'm going to the bar.
Yep, outstanding.
I'm
I think
gonna
I'll do the
go
same.
put dinner on. Otherwise, I'm going to have a very hungry other half when he gets home. So bear with me.
Excellent. We'll see you back here shortly. I am sorry to have left you in the meeting room, in the waiting room for so long, Harry.
Me?
Yeah, we were all like in the chat having a party, and I could see you in the waiting room, and I was like,
Not bitter. It's fine. No, it's
He
not
was
bitter.
shocked and
No.
everything.
Petty. Petty, I said, but not bitter. So don't worry about it, guys. That's cool. Yeah, whatever.
Come on, Rich. That was like the best 15 minutes of Zoom call ever, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, you really missed out. It's going to go viral on YouTube.
You know what? It's my birthday. No, it's not. Just ruin it the day for me. Whatever. That's cool. No, I'm not bitter. I'm bitter. More out of niche nerdy chat. Google has announced that UX is part of SEO from next year.
Oh, I was literally found out about this yesterday. The experience ranking.
Yeah, and they've released. So this is what I've got in front of me. They've released 7 PDFs all about user experience for different areas.
Yeah,
like auto, real estate, finance. They've got a PDF for each one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'll fire it over to you if you want. But
yeah, that'd be sweet. I got
interesting.
the blog, which I can put in the chat real quick.
Do you think this just amounts to them trying to get you to use material design? Because no doubt material design will be compliant with SEO.
Yeah, that's the answer, isn't it?
Yeah, UX can be a little bit subjective. So is there a PDF saying this is our subjective opinion of it?
Yeah. This is the subjective to listen to.
Because we're Google, you must all now agree.
Yeah.
What would be better, whether complying with using material design would mean you complied with it, or whether it would be more reassuring if it didn't, because that's probably my experience of Google more.
I think that would be an interesting experiment. Because with material design, or if you were using like Polymer, I don't know, is Polymer still going? Polymer project still going?
No idea.
Like even if you're using like all their guidelines to a T, you could still make an awful experience, couldn't you? And it would be interesting to have 2 effectively equal pages, but one that uses material design and see which sort of outranks.
You still need design skill and talent to make something look good, even if you use all the rules.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've just posted the link to the blog that I got referred to. So they released that at the end of May, I think it was. And this is evaluating page experience. And I think this is the kind of precursor, or the big hint, that they're going to be looking at certain factors. Like and the example they give on the page is when you click something, does the position of the button move, or because of some other piece of content and that sort of.
Yeah, and this is the one that defines for the first time that speed actually is an SEO element. When it's been for a year and a bit, really, a couple of years, but it's the first time. Say, isn't it something like first paint load or something along those lines? Like
first contentful paint.
Yeah.
It's been in their the page speed app from Google, part of the browser F12. It's been noting the page speed for many years.
And part of the Lighthouse suite as well.
Do they do anything to optimize for accessibility yet?
Yeah. Doesn't it take note of it in the F12?
You can test for it, yes. I don't know how.
They haven't officially announced that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's in Lighthouse and stuff like that. So in theory, and with the UX kind of announcement, you would only assume, yes, they are ranking for it, but it's that, there's been no official. It's one of those frustrations.
Yeah. And Lily gave a talk, I think it was last month, and she made a really good point that, like, an accessible web, like good accessibility is also good SEO. Like the two are intertwined. And I thought that was quite sort of profound. And another thing she said as well is like, if you make something accessible, you make it accessible to everyone. It's not just for a particular, subset of people. Which
there's a thing I saw on one occasion was if you turn off JavaScript and turn off sort of images in the web browser, and you just get the whole no CSS styling, it's just the black and white text.
Yeah.
Anything that you've used for CSS positioning, but then that's how a screen reader would see it as well.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And
testing.
And I mean, there are still a lot of websites out there today which you can only use in that sort of simplified form because the layout is so awful.
Simple things like color choices, you look at them and you just think, where on earth did you think that those two colors were legible? I got an email from a charity the other day and they used this bizarre cursive script on all their buttons. That I can't even read that when I know what it says.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's it's hard. I mean, that's we used to work with a company. They're not around anymore, but their approach to UX was quite interesting. It was based on this philosophy that the web doesn't come with a manual, and so they were about creating applications and interfaces that literally like you making it very, very hard to go wrong, making it very kind of clear and obvious what is available, what can be done, and how things relate to kind of other things. And I guess a lot of it is about making it intuitive, but really kind of they weren't really deep on the psychology of how people interact with things, and the sort of I guess the science of usability, and that was quite a refreshing kind of pitch, the way they were like, the web doesn't come with a manual, so how do we make it work for people?
The secretary test, like if my boss's secretary, who was 55 years old and couldn't use a fax machine, can navigate this web page, then it's probably okay.
Yeah, we used to use my mother-in-law as a test, actually. All right, okay, go on this website. Try and find the contact form. Right. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to kick off with our second and final talk of tonight, which I'm very much looking forward to. No pressure, Richard. No pressure whatsoever. I'm just expecting to have my mind expanded beyond this mortal realm.
Okay.
I'll see what I can rustle up. So next up, we've got Richard Pilton, Managing Director at Kayo Digital. He's going to be talking to us about Kent's fastest growing companies online, and hopefully we're going to learn a few things about what they're doing and how we can apply it to our own businesses. Richard, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. This is the point where I failed to share my screen and basically look stupid. Right, yes, so I'm Richard. I am the Managing Director of Kayo Digital. Every year, actually, I need to move this out of the way. You're in the way of my notes. Thank you. Right. Yes. I'll apologise in advance for the amount of information that may be in this. I've had there's a lot to learn when you analyse companies' websites, especially when it's 50 companies' websites, and trying to understand what they're doing or compare what they're doing and trying to draw some conclusions from them. So ask me any questions or ask me to reiterate anything as and when. So first of all, who's Kayo Digital? As it was said earlier, we're a leading technical agency, actually award-winning technical agency, I should say, but who isn't? We provide websites, mobile apps, bespoke software, and digital marketing services strategies. And we try and marry technology with research and the scientific method to help our customers grow their business. That's my elevator pitch. Before I go into the digital review, though, I want to touch on insight and why you need it. Surprisingly enough, but the better any given person understands their industry sector, effects of things like the geographical location, the state of the market at the moment, and then honing in particularly on how your future customers kind of work and think. The more you understand that, the better the decisions you can make to kind of direct a company towards success. Too often, people may have heard of the hippo. I think it's been in quite a few talks, certainly recently. Companies make decisions based on the highest paid person's opinion. And this basically means that whoever is the MD, whoever is the CEO, their opinion is what goes, irrespective of whether or not it's right, whether or not it's even based on evidence. So that's why you need insight. And without insight into the issues or decisions you're trying to make, you're basically left with opinion. An opinion is barely a statistical sample of one, which you can probably appreciate is arguably it's not a very good statistical sample. So when you do get good insight, you manage to get, you basically make better commercial decisions. You get less friction between decision-making teams. You don't waste time by avoiding pointless discussions about things that the evidence says simply won't work. At Kayo, we group insight into two main things in the projects we work on. It's customer insight and competitor insight. Customer insight tries to understand what your potential customers are, what they're doing, what questions they're asking, what they're looking for, and it kind of allows you to position your company so that you maximize exposure to those potential customers. And ultimately, the aim is to increase the rate at which potential customers convert into real customers. Competitor insight is similar, but starts with what a lot of people fail to do, which is identifying who your competitors are, or who any given company's competitors are. Then you look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, trying to get information on what results they're getting from it, and often the one that's most often missed off is when you're dealing with competitor insight. What's really valuable is what they're not doing, because in that area of what they're not doing, there lies opportunities, and opportunities need to be exploited. The other thing, actually worth mentioning in competitor insight, what a lot of companies do, particularly small companies or regional companies, they don't look at what we call best-in-class companies. Best-in-class companies are sort of like industry leaders or multinational companies, things like that. They don't look at them because you don't think you're going to get valuable information from them. This is wrong, particularly in digital marketing. Even though you're not aiming to, you may not be aiming to compete with a multinational or an industry leader, but everything that they're doing is there, it's visible, it's available. You can look at it, you can get ideas from it, and you can use their activities to better compete with the companies you do consider to be your competitors. Here's a couple of lists of a few things we look at, a list of a few things we look into in both of those sectors when we do research for our clients. Okay, so over to the digital review. What we did, as what was mentioned earlier, every year it's called the Kent Mega Growth. The 50 fastest growing companies in Kent are published. They have to meet a certain criteria. I can't remember exactly what it is right now. I think they have to, for the past 3 years, have had a turnover a minimum of $1 million. And then they evaluate who is growing the quickest. So we analysed all the websites for those 50 companies. We removed one company because it was a McDonald's franchise. And even though I did say, looking at industry leaders, evaluating the McDonald's.com website wasn't going to get us great information that would migrate into other companies in Kent. So we looked at these 49 companies, wanted to find out what they were doing with their websites, what they're doing on social media, what types of advertising they're using, what technologies they employ. And this can be done with any company and any company's competitors. And it can be used for benchmarking. This is probably the good point to say, just because these are the fastest growing companies in Kent, that is based on turnover. So the financials of it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the best at digital activities. And we recommend, and I imagine other technical agencies here or marketing agencies, it's a good idea to kind of perform certainly competitor research, actually all types of insight really research. It's a good idea to do this at a certain frequency, maybe once every 6 months, at least every once a year, because competitors don't stand still, their websites don't stand still, and you want to know what new things they're employing as soon as possible. So in order to limit the amount of time they get an advantage. So just a quick bit of info on the methodology we use, because we try and do this as using the scientific method as best as possible. We want this to be objective. We want as the smallest amount of opinion as possible, especially when we're gathering information. So we use a methodology called the path to purchase. It splits our analysis into 3 areas: awareness, engagement, and sales, in a nice little funnel, upside down triangle, whichever you want to look at it. Awareness basically is where you try and increase your exposure and visibility to potential customers, so that even if they're not even interested in your kind of product or service now, if they are in the future, they will remember you. And if peers, friends, colleagues, family members ask if they know anyone who provide your products or services, they're more likely to recommend you. Second section is engagement. This covers a company's website, their social media presence, PR activity that they do. The way you or to give you an example of measuring engagement, you're kind of looking to see how often people like posts that they do, people share blogs that they've published, and even the simplest way, which most people at least do, which is look at the number of visits to the website. So just looking at Google Analytics. Engagement is one of those ones that is often forgotten, but it is very important because it does support awareness and it has a direct relationship to sales. People need to engage with you before they buy anything. And that leads me on to sales, which is mainly, our analysis mainly focused on companies' websites. It's kind of easy, this one. Good sales strategy converts a higher percentage of website visitors into real customers. A little initial breakdown of the 50 fastest growing companies in Kent. 76% of them are B2B, 22% of them are B2B, and 2% of them are both. And they're about a 50-50 split from commodity-based businesses to service-based businesses. If there was there's one headline in this, yeah, the fastest growing companies in Kent, most of them actually lack what we considered to be a profitable online footprint. This is a good thing, because I mean, basically business is hard. The digital landscape is constantly changing. Even if you look at the people who are doing best at the moment, there are still more things that can be done. We considered any company that performs more than 75% of digital activities in the 3 groups to be what we call best in class. And as you can see here, just over a quarter of them were best in class awareness strategies. Pretty much no one was a best in class engagement strategy, and just over a third were a best in class sales strategy. When you get figures like this, it's this high level, it's hard to draw from them what it is. Is it because people don't feel that engagement is important, or is it that engagement is difficult? Sales is the highest there. Is it because people think ultimately, it's the closest thing, that's what we want. We want more sales. We need to put more effort into sales. Maybe that's why that's highest, maybe not. But ultimately, they're all reasonably low when you compare to best in class. And there are many best in class companies, obviously, when you look at the entire world. This is just Kent. So let's dive into the results, which may be the most interesting part. Let's see. So in terms of awareness, 65% of those companies have any kind of social media presence. So in order to be included in this statistic, they could have had a Facebook presence, a Twitter presence, an Instagram presence. And 69% of the owners of those businesses have a LinkedIn profile. And it's kind of like, well, what can we draw with this? Companies still, even now, are focusing more on personal relationship rather than growing their company brand. Well, particularly the ones in Kent. Maybe people feel as though they value the relationships more than the company's brand because they feel as though brand is for bigger companies, maybe. We don't know. Maybe this gives us information that the biggest salesperson, the person who brings in the most amount of money, even in the fastest growing companies in Kent, are the business owners. I was quite surprised about this because I would expect absolutely every company on this list to have at least one social media presence. This is the next stat. Is there's kind of a consistent split here. The activities that B2B companies do is not just it's vastly different from the activities that B2C companies do. And I'm not talking about the quality. It's just the sheer quantity. B2B companies post about 7 times a month averagely, and B2C companies post 33 times a month averagely. This might be because B2C feel as though they're talking more to a consumer, more to a personal person. But what B2B, I think B2B companies could learn a lot from B2C companies because you're still selling to a person, or you're still trying to engage with a person or make a person aware of you. B2B companies tend to be less agile. They tend to fall into more traditional lines of any of the categories, to be perfectly honest. So they're slower to uptake social media, basically. I'm expecting this to go very, the B2B posts to considerably increase over the following years. Every year we're going to do this report. But it's interesting because B2B companies could try and look at B2C companies to see what they're doing in order to get ideas of what they could be doing or should be doing in the future. I'm gonna have a drink. Remarketing and display advertising. Right, there's a concept called banner blindness. It's been around for a long time, especially in web users. It describes people's tendency to ignore page elements that they perceive to be ads. And so I think I'm not surprised by a 14% statistic. It shows the lack of faith in this type of advertising. People don't like to be advertised to. These companies understand that. 14% this year. I doubt if that's going to go up. If anything, it will go down. It will never get to zero, but it will certainly converge that way. So this is why remarketing and display advertising probably is not, unless there's a very good specific reason for it, this is not a modern tactic really, and it's displayed by the figures, or supported by the figures, I should say. Now, customer reviews. 59% of the 50 fastest growing companies in Kent use customer reviews. Now, we're a research company, and we like to look at other people's research and data. Current data highlights that, or estimates, I should say, that people are about 270% more likely to purchase a product with a review. Now, reviews are free. They require a bit of effort, you know, maybe getting some customers, promoting them to do reviews on you. If you want to use Trustpilot, send Trustpilot links to people. If you want to use Google reviews, send Google reviews to people. As I say, this essentially is free. It just should be part of everyone's daily activities. 59% of companies is, in my opinion, is low. It should be 100%. It means that even those fast-growing companies aren't understanding the value of customer reviews. And finally, video. This is expectedly low, but it shouldn't be low. Harry, my digital marketing expert, he tells everyone he meets, even before he's told them his name, he tells everyone he meets that YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. He thinks it's interesting. It is slightly, but companies need to use videos more. There seems to be a bit of a barrier. Where people think, well, what am I going to do on a video? Do I need to do a promotional video? Do I need to try and make lots of videos so that people subscribe to my YouTube channel? You don't have to go that far. The easiest way, or the entry level, is to identify frequently asked questions. This has been happening for decades, even before technology. Frequently asked questions. It's the most common questions that potential customers ask. You want to answer them. If you answer that with a video, you are now on Google and YouTube, the second largest search engine. It's very easy. They don't need to be huge, high production videos. But just a bit of a drill down into this. Again, here we find a split. 75% of B2C companies have invested in videos, and only 18% of B2B companies have. Again, it might be indicating that B2B companies still prefer traditional relationship business development manager sales methods, whereas B2C have to appeal to the masses in the best, easiest way. We can't talk to everyone. Okay, so we'll move on to the next category, engagement. This is where all of those companies scored most poorly, worst, least, any of those words. So we'll start with paid advertising. Paid advertising, things like pay-per-click on Google. 14% companies use paid advertising. Now, this is quite a strange one, because there was a study done, which is quite embarrassing for older generations, where it was nearly 70% of adults couldn't tell the difference between an ad and a natural search result on Google. So this doesn't fall into arguably this doesn't fall into the banner blindness argument. There is a huge divide here between B2B and B2C companies. B2B companies, 2% of them, of the 50 fastest growing companies, are using paid advertising. And for B2C companies, it is 60% of them. There is, even though paid advertising is getting more and more expensive, that is not because it's getting more mature, it's because people are using it more. It is more competitive. It does have value. So I'm expecting this statistic to go up every year, but I'm quite surprised it's so low. But again, B2C companies are well on this bandwagon and B2B companies are not. Newsletter sign-up facility. This kind of divides people depending on your age as well. Newsletters are more and more seen as old hat. I consider it to be old hat. I mean, it's kind of reinforced by the fact that only 21% of companies are doing it. Newsletter sign-ups, research is kind of showing that they tend to only work for people who deliver content which are personally interesting to people. So if you know if you have a hobby, or in your personal life you like this information, you like consuming this information, so invariably this is not really something to aim at for companies. So 21% of people using newsletter signups is not surprising, and I would only expect this statistic to go down year on year. Client testimonials. Very similar to reviews here. Just over a quarter of companies use client testimonials. This is a surprisingly low statistic. Again, like reviews, these are free. But these fall into this category of, or a similar category. It's called social proof. And it shouldn't be undervalued, and it is being undervalued. There's relatively recent research from Nielsen, which basically stated that 92% of people will trust a recommendation from a peer. So from a colleague, a friend, family member, you get ask them, do you know anyone who does this? And they say, yes, we recommend that. 92% of people will trust that recommendation. But the surprising statistic is that 70% of people will trust a recommendation from someone they don't even know. It's because they perceive to not knowing anything to someone has said something. It's almost a logical fallacy. They just go, well, this has evidence, that doesn't. I think I'll take any recommendation regardless of where it's from. So a testimonial on your website is something that is of huge value. And the companies aren't incorporating this. There is no evidence to suggest that this will have a negative impact at all. So every company should be doing it. It's another statistic that should be 100%. In engagement, coming back to social media, only a third of the companies use social media as their main driver to interact with customers. Huge companies, or there are a large number of huge companies that only use things like social media to interact with their customers. We're finding that a lot of companies, a lot of the fastest growing companies, don't really interact with their customers on social media at all. They may do posts. This is only an outward direction of information, but they don't engage. They don't engage with people on social media. They don't answer things. They don't ask people opinions and things like that. So this is definitely an opportunity for business to go, look, we need to try and start engaging with people on social media. There's a talk that I did last year, which there was a part of it which said in 2019 was where the amount of time that people spent on the internet exceeded the amount of times that people watch television. Now, television has been king for decades now, near enough 100 years, and now people are spending more time on the internet. So you need to look at how they're spending it, and a large proportion of that is on social media. So if you don't want to try and engage with your customers on the medium that they are spending most time on, you may want to reconsider whether or not that was a good decision. Last point on engagement. This one's very difficult. Customer-facing apps. Obviously, as you would expect, not many companies use customer-facing apps. It's difficult to make an app or work out what kind of app a company should use. That's probably why the statistic is so low. But the benefit of apps are huge. If you can look at an operational, a part of your operation that could be serviced with an app, and you can successfully get customers onto the app, you circumvent any other method of your competitors talking to your customers or your potential customers. It's a, I mean, I could, and I have done a whole talk about apps. This is the time in the next 5 to 10 years. If you or your competitors do not have any customer-facing apps at the moment, whoever does will get a competitive advantage over everyone else. You can talk to me about apps later, but we would predict that this is only going to go up, and probably go up quite sharply, whereas all companies expect to go right. As 20 years ago, they said, I'm not entirely sure why I need a website. This is the point now where people say, I'm not entirely sure why I need an app. Just wait 20 years or wait 10 years and you'll find out. Okay, to the last category, sales. This next stat is, for me, was the most surprising. Call to action. You should all know what a call to action is. It's basically how you change your website from being a brochure into being a business development manager, or a digital business development manager. So only less than half of the 50 fastest growing companies in Kent use call to actions on their website. There's always research into call to action. One of the most up-to-date research is that an appropriately applied call to action can increase numbers of inquiries by 50%. You can focus on increasing traffic to your website. You can focus on increasing brand awareness and things like that. But if you look at your Google Analytics and think, well, I've got X thousands of visitors per week on my website, and this converts to this many inquiries, just by applying good call to actions, or a good call to action strategy, you could increase the number of inquiries by 50%, and you don't even have to increase the number of visitors. This was just so surprising to me, because everyone should have a good call to action strategy on their website. Commodities companies, basically 1 in 5 of them don't have an e-commerce capability, facility, functionality. Research has shown that when it doesn't matter whether you're you're looking for B2B services, or B2B or B2C services, visitors are almost 3 times more likely to inquire for websites that show even as little as a guide price, compared to websites that ask just to contact us to discuss it. Now, B2B companies are much less likely to present prices or provide a e-commerce facility, but there's definitely an opportunity here for anyone who sells a commodity. You need to work out how to communicate the cost of it. It doesn't even have to be exactly. You need to be give it enough information to people to evaluate whether or not they want it and whether or not you are within their price range. So we expect this to go down. Yeah, I mean, B2B, B2C, or basically commodities companies, there will always be a way to get this information to potential customers, and don't be scared of it, because as soon as your competitors aren't scared of it and they do it, they will have an advantage. And finally, on sales, live chat. Live chat is something that not weirdly, large companies adopted this much more than smaller companies. Maybe there was a technology barrier early on where it was difficult to do a live chat, but there's so many easy solutions now that allow you to put the live chat client on all or a subset of all of your employees' computers, and if they're there, they may be able to pick up the live chat, and it manages it nicely so that people don't, you don't get multiple people answering them, and they nicely handle people not being there. Live chat capabilities are getting more and more popular with visitors. They're more popular than contact forms at the moment. Contact form popularity is declining year on year. Certainly the use of telephone numbers is declining. Users are perceiving live chat as a quicker way to get an answer to their question than calling and certainly filling in the contact form. 6% is clearly a very low, very, very low percentage. So there's an opportunity here. There's no negative impact of having a live chat capability on your website. This statistic is only going to go up, but talk to web agencies, they will tell you how easy it is to put on your site. And finally, this kind of plus category was the technology sector, technology group. The headline findings of research within technology from these companies. First one is 20% of, again, this is the 50 fastest growing companies in Kent. 20% of them are not fully responsive. This shouldn't be the case. You should have none that are fully responsive. Pretty much any modern CMS system does this for you anyway. We're getting into an area where you have to kind of try not to be fully responsive. I think we were talking earlier before that things like this actually do factor into your credibility with Google. Let alone when you have a look at Google Analytics, see how many people were looking at your website without not on a desktop, on a mobile device or something like that. So there's no excuse for any website not to be fully responsive nowadays. This is completely unsurprising. 50% of websites are built using WordPress. I think it's about 70, maybe someone else will correct me. I think it's about 70% of all websites on the planet are built using WordPress. WordPress is a very capable CMS. Some people like it, some people don't. There are pros, there are cons. Not going to get into that conversation. I mean, dare I say it from a techie, the success of a website is not that involved in the CMS you use. Just put it out there. That might create a huge conversation there after this, or not. And actually, we mentioned it earlier as well, Google Lighthouse. It provides an ability for us to score websites based on a number of metrics, and a couple of the main headlines. We did an average. You get a score out of 100, and we did an average. Accessibility across those 50 websites was 75 out of 100. That's a respectable average. If your website got 75 out of 100 for accessibility, that's good. It's not great, it's good. But supporting the first stat, the average score for speed and usability on mobile devices of those 50 websites was 35 out of 100. This is undeniably a low score. As I mentioned, we were just talking about before I was doing this talk, how these types of things, this UX, accessibility, usability, etc., on different devices is going to affect your credibility with Google, which basically means if you've got poor credibility, you appear lower. And if you appear lower, your business shrinks. You've got no real chance of growing. So, apologies for all of the information and probably how quickly I went through it. I hope you found it useful though. Sorry if I went quick at times. I am available for any questions. I'll stop sharing now, actually.
Am I unmuted? I am unmuted. That was phenomenal. Thank you very much.
A lot of info. I apologise.
Yeah. No. That's it must have been a huge amount of research that went into that.
Well, yeah. Talk to Harry. Harry, is it all right that people can have the full report, because this was just the headline findings? I mean, it's quite extensive.
Yeah, I was going to fire a link over to everyone now.
Oh, please do, please do. That's that's fascinating. I guess I've got, as you can imagine, a lot of questions, but the one that kind of, and this is the one that I guess is closely held counterintuitively as a belief that I hold deeply, even though I run a digital agency. And I'll ask you the question: if so many of the top 50 fastest growing companies in the county are doing so badly online. What are they doing right?
Well, they're not doing so badly. I mean, this is about interpreting statistics, really. They're not all doing badly. And there are other factors like how well industry sectors are doing and things like that. I think rather than, maybe I should adjust the presentation to this, rather than trying to take away that all of those people are doing so poorly that basically you might conclude that digital marketing is ultimately pointless. Don't do that. It's just that as I said at the beginning, it's really hard. There are opportunities to do better than them.
Yes.
And as we know, I mean, technology companies are are up there with the largest companies in the world. They're overtaking petrochemical companies and things like that. And the understanding is still quite immature, even now. So yeah, I mean, they're not doing that. They're not doing that badly. I mean, we were comparing to best in class. If we did the whole country or the EU or something like that, we'd find, well, actually, yeah, the real best in class people are in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it's also a little bit, sorry to add on that, it's judged on the industry. I think that if you, like 80-90% of it was B2B. And albeit we were saying there that the B2C and the B2C were completely different beasts, in the sense of the B2C had completely taken on that kind of the powerful use of digital marketing, the powerful use of actually the website. The B2B companies were actually, and probably touched upon what Richard initially said, people do buy from people, and that's expected, but that's why you see that actually B2B company are more relying on a personal LinkedIn account rather than a brand social media presence, when of course you're kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face if you have both, because obviously you buy from yourself, Aaron, but you understand that Aaron comes from a brand that is well known, so it's that safety net of what you buy from. So actually it's potentially, kind of touching on there, it's the industry as well, and the historic behind it, because you sell socks. If you sell a house, it's going to get a little bit more revenue than selling socks. So it probably is touching that point as well.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, actually. Because I mean, we've certainly, like, thinking about our client book and some of the inquiries that we've got over the years, where XYZ company you've never heard of on the industrial estate round the corner are doing 150 million a year in sales, and you're like, excuse me? But you've never heard from them. Yes, their products they sell one of, and it costs 149 million. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There is an aspect of, like, what does it cost to deliver that service.
Yeah, also, actually, just to add in there, because you see, this is a piece of research that we do every year. But at the risk of devaluing it, you wouldn't do this yourself, because it is across the board. You go, well, what are the fastest growing companies doing? You go, well, the vast majority of them are just not relevant to you. What you really want to do is you need to find your competitors and find the best in class, and you need to do this. People need to do this research within their industry, and what you really want to hope for actually is that the competitors are doing poorly. Because then it's really easy to get above them. If someone came to us and said, right, what we want to do is compete in selling iPhones, and it's just like, no chance. I'll do the research. But when people take their, especially localized smaller industries, and they say our target market is in the southeast, and we go, brilliant. What we're going to do is try and get some ideas from best-in-class national or international companies. We're going to compare those to what your regional competitors are doing, and then we're going to come up with a load of ideas about going, we need to do this, and this. On a good vein, that works. It's all about data.
Follow-up question to that, though. Do you think that, because one of the points that you made was that when you look at best in class, when you look at these large internationals, you can see all their stuff. You can literally walk inside of their whole marketing ecosystem.
Yeah.
Is there a danger? And I actually, this is kind of a question wrapped as a suggestion, but is there a danger that people look at what best in class is doing and don't actually understand the reasons why they're doing certain things? So, for example, is there a danger that a manufacturer of whatever kind of consumer goods thinks that, well, if I release it, you know, in white or in silver, then, you know, that's where Apple's success came from, for example?
Yeah, it is difficult because you can find out the information, and that's the first step. The real value becomes from interpreting and getting the correct conclusions. There's a really, what I liked, a really good example of people gathering data and what conclusions you can make from it. It was actually in there was a statistical study in World War II where they, all of the planes, all of the Spitfires that came back, they marked where all the bullet holes were on the wings, actually all over the plane. And they mapped them all out and said, right, you know, this is where all the bullet holes are. And they said, right, cool. So where should we put the additional armor? And they said, well, where the bullet holes are hitting most. And they said, no, it's where they're hitting least, because the planes that didn't come back got hit there. The planes that arrived back were the ones with the holes in, and this is a great like demonstration of, you need to look at data, and you can't just copy it, or if you misinterpret it, you can do wildly the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd echo that. Like I used to be, I basically built the conversion rate optimization for Currys and PC World websites, and like half the time, they may be seen as best-in-class websites, but they've got no bloody idea what they're doing. Like, just because they're seen as best-in-class doesn't mean that they understand what they're doing. The benefit they have is that they can experiment. And like, if you're a small company, just go out there and try something. But if you're a big company like Google, when they were trying to decide the color blue for search engine results, tested 72 different shades of blue. Like, no website has traffic other than Google to do that sort of testing to get statistically significant results. But
actually, similarly, but testing, you don't, you know, it doesn't mean unless you can test 72 shades of blue, there's no point you doing it. You don't have to do that much to get benefit from it. You need to, but you do need to test things. What a lot of smaller companies fail at is that they come up with an idea, they use the hippo, they go, oh, I think this is going to be best. What we're going to do is try it. It fails, and you just go, well, I don't know what to do. And it was just like, your opinion, we try and find a nice way of saying your opinion doesn't matter. In fact, you're the only person on the planet that you're not going to sell to. So why does your opinion matter?
Yeah.
And what we need to try and do is come up with 5 or 6 strategies, work out the cost of them, trial them, and really importantly, work out what the measure is for their success, and then stop the ones that don't succeed.
It's got to be hypothesis driven, and like
got to be.
The only bad result is an inconclusive result. If it's positive or negative, you've learned something, and that's positive, right?
Bang on. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the counterfactual is the name for what you described with regards to the Spitfires, the ones that came back with holes in. Well, they came back, so they survived, and that is the hardest thing to prove exists, arguably, because you're only, when your available data is naturally biased towards those that are successful. This leads me on to another question, though, because how do small businesses test reliably? How do they create hypotheses that they have a chance in hell of actually implementing and letting run for a period of time? So taking website traffic, if you've got a website that gets, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 hits a month or something like that, and they're only getting, I don't know, they're getting a few contact form inquiries through a day, and, you know, once you take down, you know, the number, like the engagement the engagement multiplier or whatever, and the you know, the number of people that inquire and the number of them that are qualified and the number of them, you know, of the 10, 20 inquiries they get a month, maybe one of them converts. Now, how do they start testing in a way that doesn't affect that one that does convert? That's I think that's because I'm like you, huge believer testing. But when you look at like some of the best in class testers in the world and some of these fantastic case studies, when Amazon changed their button from green to yellow or whatever it might be, you're like, well, they figured that one out over the course of an afternoon with about 10 million sessions. So how do small businesses test in a way that doesn't affect what little they have that might be working currently? Big question. Sorry.
It's a very big question.
I haven't got the answer.
No, it is a very big question, and it does take practice. I mean, maybe the best advice I could give is you can't test for a silver bullet. That's what a lot of people try and do. You know, basically start small and get bigger. Don't don't test for a silver bullet. And the other thing is people do testing the wrong way around. Remember, in science, what they actually try and do, they don't try and prove that something is right. They try and prove that something is wrong and fail. And trying to, and if you, that might be sometimes hard to get your head around, but when you understand this and put the time in and effort to go, right, you know, what we're trying to try, you can do this with A/B testing. Google helps you. There's tools with Google to help you out do this. Now, you need to make a plan. You need to try and work out what it is, and you need to gather information that you've got that's freely available. This is why you do competitor analysis. What are they doing and why? So instead of coming up with a new idea and say, how do I test my entirely new idea? Why don't you go, well, let's just have a look at other people and see, test what they're doing and go, right, okay, I'm getting some good insight into how they're doing it. This is the point. You need to look at the layers of it. Don't try and always go for the silver bullet, because you invariably will fail. And if you're saying that, you know, your budget's low and your time is short, maybe try and work out how you can do incremental improvements to allow your time and your budget to get bigger.
Yeah, I think also on that one, kind of just reiterate right at the end part, and more as like an easy takeaway. There's, for a small business, obviously, as you kind of inferred there, you can't rely on your data if there's not enough there. Like Amazon's got 5 minutes worth of data and then you're done for the day, kind of thing. A small business could be a couple of months. So there's tons of little tools out there, little tricks, but even like Google Analytics, it allows you to benchmark against your competitors' data of mediums. So straight away, albeit that's not a conclusive thing, you can say, you can define, if I'm in the sector, the vertical of property and construction in the UK, I know my competitors get more traffic through social media than through email. So if you haven't looked into social media, then that's something you can look into straight away. So I think it is understanding the lie of the land as well as defining the tests, of course, but actually understanding, again, what's working for other people.
Yeah.
Have a little dip your toe in it.
Yeah. Excellent. Any more questions? I could genuinely engage in this for weeks. I find this area kind of fascinating, not just the results that come out of it, but like the thinking that needs to go into it to be able to draw those results. So, but please the floor.
Richard, you mentioned apps. I said I work with some quite big corporates, and I'm constantly, I'm a product manager, so I'm constantly fighting against apps because they take twice as long to build than a web app, and I'm yet to see, or I've seen maybe twice in the last 10 years a use case that requires an app that you can't build with a decent web app these days. If you're a building contractor, for example, which a lot of the guys on that list are, or a car, maybe not cars, but like if you're in one of those B2C markets, how do you get permission? Why do you think that there's going to be demand to have something living on your phone versus a website?
It's about convenience, and I think I mentioned it. Convenience is king. We did a talk called, on to app or not to app, and we again categorized apps as customer-facing apps, or well, external or internal apps. Internal apps tend to be what you look at your operational procedures and you go, well, what could we do better with an app? There's quite a lot. If you save a minute, you know, or even if you replace paper with a mobile phone, it is actually better than a web application to do that, especially when you've got no signal. Then you have a look at external apps. Now, external apps do tend to be a bit more for maintaining customers. I don't know the last time I logged into my online banking via a browser. I don't know. I had people who said to me, "Is this that I don't trust apps? I only use online banking," and I'm just like, "Well, okay, you're insane, but fine." You know, Amazon. The vast majority of people now, if they continuously use Amazon, they use the Amazon app. The biggest benefit of an app over a web application is they don't go via a browser, because and it's about convenience. I can open the app, I'm already logged in, I'm already there. I didn't have to browse to the location, press login and go, yeah, okay, it remembered my login details and things like this. But it's all about this fine tuning. And when you've got someone to be particularly a repeat customer and hopefully a fan of a business, they will use your app. Anything that's done regularly, people prefer to do on an app rather than through a browser. I mean, you were saying that, yeah, from a technical perspective, I mean, I'm a technical person as well. I completely shared previously your view as to, I don't understand. It brings nothing to the party. There's nothing new in technology. I didn't understand why WhatsApp needed to exist when Skype was around. I did not understand this. And then it was just because WhatsApp didn't bring anything to the party other than maybe organizing your conversations differently. And now WhatsApp is absolutely, you know, is much wider used, particularly on, you know, phone-to-phone communications than Skype. And it is sometimes hard to get your head around, but there is opportunities there that if you can build the base and find the use for an app. I can't give everyone again the silver bullet of what that app is for any given industry, but it is around convenience. If you can shave off 2 seconds, people will use an app. Yeah, it seems to be like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way is apps. Like if we go back to the 2000s or even before, small businesses were looking at whether they need a website or not. And now every small business to large business has websites. We're kind of in that stage now. Large businesses that have apps, small ones are deciding, medium ones are deciding. And this, you could go to your web browser on your phone, then type in the thing you're after, or find a bookmarker, then get to the website, or just click the app for it and open it. It's convenient.
Yeah. It's if it is of value to you. I have been looking at what apps are doing, and it's interesting. Like Sainsbury's app, their Nectar app. Every time you buy something in Sainsbury's, and they do the convenient thing, you can have your club card or Nectar card or whatever it is on there. That's not it. Once you've bought something, it sends you a push notification and says, "Do you want to rub this off on the screen, and we'll give you extra Nectar points." It's not because that app is not valuable to them. It's because they want you to use it. They want you to be engaged with it. Once you've got that app and you have bought into it, you won't go to Tesco's. And there's even a funny story. I mean, Wetherspoons were the first people to adopt the ability to buy around using an app. The benefit now, I mean, they couldn't foresee COVID, but everyone's now going, crap, we need an app like Wetherspoons. And there is even viral social things where people were saying, I'm having my birthday at Wetherspoons, I'm on table 36, and people that weren't even in the pub could buy them a drink. This wasn't planned. And now people actually go to Wetherspoons, or certainly before lockdown, just to buy a drink on the app. Whereas two weeks ago, they would go, I wouldn't go into Wetherspoons, I wouldn't be seen dead in there. But now I want to use the app for some reason.
I guess my point is more, though, that within companies where capital is constrained and where you've only got limited investment, where do you put your money? And for most companies on that list, I think the companies you've mentioned are sort of high frequency purchase, where I can understand the convenience where you're using that. When I was at Curry's, we were looking at these things, and we couldn't work out a reason to have an app because people were buying from us once every 2 years on average. And you would hear these arguments of well, people are buying from us more frequently, but they're not going to buy a £500 TV or a £300 fridge more frequently. So what would encourage? We were trying to work out the use cases and things like augmented reality to position your fridge in your kitchen to make it look pretty. But it's kind of how do you make sure that you're getting a good return on investment versus investing in people. Like if I spend the same money that I would spend on an app in PPC, will I get a better return?
Isn't that a case where, okay, they're going to buy a TV perhaps once every 4 or 5 years, but you need to keep that engagement running with that particular customer so that when they want to go and buy a phone or a set of headphones or absolutely anything that's technical, they'll go back to that shop because they've got an app that they engage with on a regular basis. Isn't that the same principle which Amazon works? I mean, Amazon, when it started out, was a bookseller, effectively, and you'd buy a book once every 5 or 6 weeks, maybe less, but you engage with that app right from the start, and as a result, you now buy pretty much everything. And I know you said that YouTube was Harry, you said that YouTube was the second most popular search engine. I think Amazon must be up there in the top 5 as well, being one of them. So I think if you've got the app and it's convenient and you keep on engaging with that particular business, you're going to keep returning to that business to buy things and engage with them on a regular basis. But I think the question is, what is that app? How do you keep that customer engaged through your app? What do you offer? Could it be that you offer? I don't know. If I knew the answer, I'd probably be able to.
Could be printer ink refills or fresh paper. Or...
it's
exactly.
not easy.
Yeah.
Actually, to answer the question, because you said if we invested the same amount of money on PPC, what would be our biggest return? You can't apply it to that because, or you shouldn't apply it to that because they're not mutually exclusive. They may be in a restrictive budget, but you would, if you followed that through, you would end up going, well, actually, we found that PPC is the biggest return on investment. And if you applied that logic, you go, well, you don't do anything else then. And whereas you should be going, well, we should be trying more. Apps are difficult. They're really in early stages.
Yeah.
This is the point. Early adopters have got onto them, and it is. I've said basically that we've got 5 to 10 years now of opportunity before. After 10 years, you'll just have to have one anyway because we'll all have them. We're in this range of opportunity, and that doesn't mean it's easy. It just means it's there. So. That's all I've got to say about apps.
No, that's fantastic. I'm not gonna go down the whole progressive web app conversation because
I do love them, but yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah.
We'll do that when we're in person over a pint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel there needs to be possibly even a recorded discussion with those of us who are really impassioned about this subject and some beer. I think that would be fantastic. If that's all that everyone's got, then I will call this a met up. Yeah,
nice.
Nice phrase.
Thank you. That literally just there, it happened right there. Just the magic of the night. And I'm going to share my screen again to close things off properly.
Thanks,
Aren't you
Megan.
proud of me, Megan? Hey, I remembered a thing. So that was that. We're at goodbyes networking done offline. Oh, how do we do that now? How do we do offline networking? We must consider this and meditate. Right, next meet up. Wednesday, the 19th of August. our speakers next month, and I'm going to read this out because, like, I know you can see it, but I like reading things. Our speakers next month will be see, I'm terrible at speaking though. Our speakers next month will be David Proud and Michael. Can everyone read that? this thing. David Proud and Mike Crane. They'll be given talks on ways to make better videos by yourself and how to create awesome results instantly. Go to the meetup page to register. The only thing we ask for people at Meetup is, like, if you know someone who would find this kind of thing interesting, these conversations, these types of speakers, let them know. Let them know about Ken Digital Meetup. Let them know about what we're doing here. I got more. Sorry, trying to multitask. I want to get the chat window back. But yeah, let them know. There we go. No, I can't see the chat. Sorry if someone's just chatted me, and if there's something terrible going on my face or in the background, I am so sorry. But yeah, let them know. There's, you know, it's a free event. When we get back to the physical world, when we download ourselves back into this mortal coil, there will be pizza and beer. But until then, it's just a bunch of, like, cool people in digital talking about all sorts of aspects, and it's for people that are in it. It's for people that want to know about it. You know, it's just a cool place to be. And I will do the upcoming meetups. So during lockdown, Ashford, we have been the bastion of KDM, because we had basically the format that lent itself well enough to go digital. But in the future, we're going to be sharing again. We're getting Maidstone back involved. We're getting Medway back involved. It's all going to be happening. So next month, there will be 2 meetups. The first of which is going to be hosted by the now combined JK Online. So Joe and Carl from JK Online, and I can't remember the Clockwork Moggy guys. Claire and I can't remember.
No, it's Carrie and Neil.
Carrie and Neil, that's it. Yes, I know them so well. They have combined. They're now all Clockwork Moggy. They're now Kent's newest full-service agency, and they are going to be hosting KDM Medway. And that is going to be online. That is going to be the 5th of August from 6:30 p.m. And then Maidstone is now hosted by Supersonic Playground. Chantal, who was here just earlier, she's going to be involved in coordinating that. So that's Chantal and... It's another Richard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Supersonic, yeah. Okay, I'm not, like, my brain's not playing things on me. And so they're going to be hosting from like the 2nd of September, and we're going to do this, like, rotating thing. So it's going to be like 1 in 3 kind of thing. So it won't always be me, and of which I'm sure you'll be desperately pleased. But yeah, so we're going to be, like, kind of rotating it, and we'll have our own kind of, like, twists and things like that. And I know especially, like, the JK guys are very good at doing the kind of interactive thing, whereas I'm more of a kind of contemplative monologue. But nonetheless, KDM, it's growing again. In light of lockdown, we grow and we flourish, and we flower. Which reminds me that I picked a magnolia flower earlier on today off a magnolia tree, giant magnolia tree. You might know the one, Richard. It's just outside of the police station on.
Oh, I know it very well. Yes.
Yeah.
I've been there many times.
Yeah, I have never smelt a magnolia flower today. They smell edible. It's like citrus and lime, and it's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, magnolia. Who knew? But that's it. That's us. I hope everyone had fun. Feel free to hang around. I'm going to stop the recording because this actually like goes on YouTube, so it's just like hours of me rambling on YouTube. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll leave this running if everyone wants to chat. I think there's like good conversations we had. Recording is, how do I stop the recording?